she's going to start recording.
Okay, we are recording.
All right. Well, good morning. This is the 9 a.m. DRC meeting for Deer Run Plan Development PD Major Amendment. And the applicant is present, or the applicant's representative is present?
Yes, David Evans is present. I believe also we have some other possible potential representatives on the phone or on the Zoom meeting, but I can't see them, so I'm not sure.
Okay, great. And then did you receive a copy of your comment document?
We did, thank you.
Okay, great. So we have other county staff members in the Zoom meeting, and if you'd like to go through and ask any questions that you have, and we have staff here that can address those questions. Just let us know the number that you're referring to, and we'll go from there.
Fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity to meet via Zoom. We enjoy this. So obviously we've received the comments and reviewed them. We know that there's a series of comments relative to the application for the PD amendment, but then you have at the end kind of an informational items we understand attention to possibly in the future. I want to clarify that so that I'm understanding what we need to actually do during the amendment process and how we answer the questions that, you know, the status have not met, but then beyond that, you have some comments that were actually provided during the pre-application process that we responded to in the formal application for PD amendment. We'll make sure that we're on the same page how we get back into the county with the revised plan and the information that you need in the comments. So let me just go through some of the initial comments first. The questions about it really requested this so we introduce the project and what we're doing. We have met with the county in the past on this project. Obviously, I understand where is. I understand that's off. We're in the middle of it. That is closed, and we're trying to work on a new development. But at the same time, we're proposing some additional features with the AOA and the county about relative to monetizing some of the open space that they have available. So I think I want to move right into number 2, which has the open space calculation. So with the application, we provided kind of an open space map. And it's one of the exhibits that you would have received in the application package. It's called Deer Run Golf Course Area Calculations. And based on the comment, what we can physically do is go back and define each one of these spaces a little better. And so that you understand what kind of open space based on the land development code that we're applying for or using those particular areas for. This would be in conjunction with a document that we also provided under we call it the Deer Run Preliminary Concept. And this was a plan done by both us and EDSA, landscape architect, and it was kind of a 14-page amenity plan that we have presented to the HOA as well. This kind of gave us a window of opportunity for some of the existing open space in the Deer Run PD that are open space tracks, you know, to add pocket parks, to add some amenities, to add some areas of, you know, that had not yet been amenitized, and can kind of use those areas for open space credits. Specific to the 25% requirement for the entire PD. So with that, what I think I need to do, I just need to clarify, go back to the plan that we provide, the open space track calculations, area calculations that we provided, and make sure that we label those specific areas on that plan with a specific area, and then a type of open space on the land development code regulation, talking about the types of open space, passive, active, park, whatever. It will be consistent, however, with the preliminary concept that we provided for the all those open space tracks. So if there's any comment or feedback relative to how it works, I just wanted to hear that.
So I can put you on pause for 1 second here. I do have a copy of those plans, so I'm gonna share the screen so everybody can see what you're talking about, okay?
Fantastic, thank you.
And then Mary, on your end, is the connection going in and out, like the internet?
A little bit, yeah. So it may, David, you may want to not show your screen, you know, turn off your video. That may help with some of the connection problems. I know we like seeing your face, but your audio is a little
Yeah, Mr. Evans, I think your internet, the bandwidth it may be taking
Okay.
up too much bandwidth with your video on.
Let me shut that off. See if that helps.
Yes, that's much better. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Didn't know that. Looks like we need to upgrade. Okay, so that's the landscape proposed amenitizing plan specific to the areas that will be used for some of the amenities that we added. And you see that entire document that we defined areas throughout the Deer Run PD as those types of open space areas. And, you know, obviously where the new development will be also on the golf course. So the golf course is not being developed. As you can see, those green areas on the east and west side of the yellow area, big yellow area, and obviously those will be retained for some of the stormwater provisions that we need to provide. There are some existing utilities and easements that we're leaving in some certain areas. We know that there is some floodplain that we have to deal with that we've had a study for. So we're familiar with the entire process here and understand what we have to do in the future as well. So we've accommodated that before we got this plan into you. That is the plan that you're looking at that has the physical areas associated with the open space, and then in that document on further pages is kind of what we're using in each one of those. So each one's kind of zoomed in, each one of those open space areas, and you'll see a pocket park or benches or something that we use to kind of understand what types of things might be available in those open space tracts. And this has been shared with the Deer Run Association too, just to kind of make sure they're on board with the types of things that we're proposing and using for open space on the PD.
This is Dana Lee. So if you're proposing these pocket parks, can you hear me or did I freeze?
No, perfect.
Okay, great. If you're proposing these pocket parks or community parks on property you do not own, you would need to get owner authorization and they would have to be part of the PD major amendment and rezone. And I don't believe these little pocket parks were included in the open space calculation plan, which is separate from the conceptual plan. So I guess the comment is really just asking for clarity on what exactly is being proposed for open space, or if you're just using things that are existing and using them towards the open space calculation. If there's something that exists today that we could count as open space.
Okay. Yeah, we did. It's not clear because it's not labeled like this plan is. We use this landscape plan to actually label the areas specific, but the plan that you have that's on our border called area calculations actually has all the areas that we're using defined in a kind of a hatch pattern, blue, and it's a separate plan from this document. That does have all the areas, but it doesn't have them, and I need to probably tear it apart a little bit better and label it better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in order to get the HOA, in order for them to have these amenities, they would have to be on board. We kind of wanted to get to the open space question first, and then obviously address how we deal with those issues through this process. But I think if I can show you the plan that we did relative to the open space areas and how they'll be used, existing, then I think you'll see how we came up with our numbers.
Dana Lee, do you know what it's labeled in the?
It's in the documents folder as open space.
Okay, I'm in the drawings folder. Okay.
Yeah, it's in the other folder.
It's slow right now, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and there are several HOAs within Deer Run. So each one, if one of the areas is proposed to be amenitized in a way that it currently isn't, you would need that individual HOA to be on board. If it's property owned by them. Some of the green space is owned by other parties, such as the golf course, for example, or some of the green belts. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. And we could probably separate that until the time I would think in this particular application, I'm going to show you the amenities that are on the areas that the applicant actually owns. and then maybe back out the others as a proposal for the HOAs. If they want them, they can have them, and then they can come on board. How can we do
Right.
this? Well, I'm gonna show you how this works overall first, then we can talk about how we get there. That's it. Yep. So those areas that you see are the legend somehow disappeared, but each one of those colors represent the type of open space that we counted for relative to the water bodies, some of them in the 50% area in conservation areas, and then others being linear parks or areas that are opportunities that have open space areas that are directly connected to a right-of-way accessed by the residents, and it exists today.
Okay. Yeah, and then one of our questions as part of that comment is we need to know the acreages of each of these areas so we can pretty much add them up and corroborate the acreages that you're proposing as part of the rezone.
Okay. Yep. And I think that document will be the one I use to specifically label each one of those areas and give you an area associated with that so you can see how we came up with our numbers.
Yeah, that's fine.
Or you could just believe us, I guess.
Never.
Come on. We have CAD. Okay, and I think that was your number 5 comment that you had that specific request. That's fine with that. And 6.
Yeah, just the a lot of the development orders and developers commitments agreements for Deer Run used gross density, so we just wanted the gross density for the overall Deer Run that includes your proposed additional unit.
Right. Traffic study, we understand that that it's there, not required at this point, but we did have it done already to satisfy some comments and questions by the county and the HOA early on, so there wasn't any confusion as to how that might work.
Yeah, I did send it to our traffic analyst, and he is reviewing it. I don't believe he is finished, but Bill White may be able to answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Bill White. I just wanted to comment on the traffic study that you did provide. That it was a 2017 study, which would no longer be applicable right now. So it needs to be updated. That study would need to be updated, and then we would have to address some possibly some near site access improvements, and specifically the signal at Eagle Circle and Redbug Lake Road. From that whole intersection, is geometry wise has changed since that original analysis. It is now, before it was a T intersection, now it is has got a south leg added to it and a dedicated right turn lane heading south from Eagle Circle that has been placed in it. So that'll need to be reanalyzed.
Okay. And we understand that'll be required during the concurrency review. So along with the environmental side, we've requested that we defer concurrency until that time during this process. So I'm assuming that's something we come back with during the final development plan.
Yes, it can be deferred at this point.
This is Rebecca again. I know, Bill, though, if the county is going to be requiring any off-site improvements, I know John Dredge, the Public Works Director, does like for those to be included within a development order. And since this is a PD major amendment, there would be a proposed development order. So I don't know if you'd want to outline those improvements in that document.
Well, we couldn't do that without a new analysis and to analyze that intersection. So we could just have it in the DO that it will be required based on the review of the final analysis.
I mean, I think if the transportation or the traffic is one of the issues surrounding the rezone, it might be a good idea to have that information up front. But that's just my opinion.
Well, have you guys already started updating the traffic study?
No, that's the one we had from before, and certainly wanted to get that in front of you because we had this conversation obviously 3 years ago. And we understand that we will have to update that traffic study. So I'll talk to the applicant and make sure that we're on the same page with how that works. They will have to do it, so it doesn't matter, but we were just trying to kind of get this out there and see if there was anything else that we need to address first, and understand that, you know, if there is a concurrency related issue when it comes to traffic as well as environmental, and we would have deferred that until the time we did the final development plan. So let me just kind of circle the horn and see what we would take to get it reevaluated. We just didn't want to hold the process up.
Okay. Yes, you can check into that and then just touch base back with me.
Okay. I'm in the informational section now based on what we did. I think there was a question. I'm trying to make sure I see it. There were some questions, I think, about the physical wetlands on the property as well as conservation easements that might be required. We submitted a report by ECS and the documents that he came up with relative to the existing ponds that are on the property as well as the wetlands that are there that he found. We did locate that wetland on the site plan, proposed site plan. We indicate that to be impacted, but there are questions relative to buffers and you know, landscaping not required, not allowed in buffers and things like that. So at this point, and this is in the informational comments, so I'm not sure if this is something we do at the final development plan stage. We do show the wetland at this point, but is there more information that's needed on that particular area that was flagged by the environmental consultant on this particular plan?
If the wetland's being impacted, then there would be no buffer associated with it. But if it's going to remain any portion of it or any other wetlands, then at that point, it would need to be shown on the master development plan, specifically because there's a lot of detail on this master development plan, which would include tracks such as the wetlands areas.
Right, and we've indicated to be impacted, so I think we'll stick with that. On this plan, it's just a small area that it's isolated, and we want to make sure we designate that better. And I think, like you said, one of your comments was to turn off the aerial in the background. We kind of like it, but when it gets it's very busy. So I want to make sure I clean that up a little bit so you understand what we're looking at.
Right. And the colors are nice as well, but when it comes to actually reproducing this, it's going to end up being black and white for the most part. So the colors often don't show up that well. So you can keep this version of it and then just have a separate sheet that is clean with no aerial and all grayscale or black and white.
Okay, so you want to keep the aerial anyway as something that can
just like a reference. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it helps to kind of see the surrounding neighborhoods and what's under it and that kind of thing too. So.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Let me. I think after that, our environmental services would be something we deal with during the final development plan. We've got comments on floodplain protection and storage. So that was a comp plan comment. All these informational comments, I'm going to assume that those would be dealt with again during final development plan, unless we talk about those specifically now, like the traffic study, because they're saying informational.
This is Paul Zimmerman. I work for Environmental Services on water and sewer utilities.
Sure.
There is some issues. We have a bunch of old easements throughout all your concept plan shows a bunch of old easements. Some of those easements are for the benefit of Castleberry, and you're right on our Castleberry service area boundary. So some of the northern parcels in the northwest part of your project are potentially in Castleberry service area. So we'll need to talk that over with Castleberry, who's better able to serve that, as well as all those easements on there. We don't know what they're for. They're not for our existing utilities. So there's the vacation of those easements or realignment. Plus, we don't have much of a water feed into that area. So there's a lot of stuff that we'll need to discuss going forward.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, we tried to indicate those on this concept plan because we know there was a bunch of them. And I figured, someone like yourself would ask about them. So good questions. And we have looked into some of those. We do understand that you've got some areas that's served by Castleberry, on the line. So we're able to deal with that. We've got a lot of this is drainage relative to some floodplain impacts and other things that were done, I think, back during the original PD. And we've accommodated those and kind of worked on what those areas would be, which is why we left out a couple of big areas east and west of the proposed development to help impact, to mitigate some of those impacts. So we're familiar with that, and we have to work through those anyway, and we'll work through public services to make sure that we're not disconnecting something we shouldn't.
All right, and we were actually looking for more than just one feed to that area in terms of water supply. So that would be one of our main points. I don't see where I'd get that water feed.
Okay.
Yep.
So Paul, this is Rebecca. So what does that mean in terms of the water feed? There's not adequate water supply to the property, or?
We have one single 8-inch line going up Daneswood Way that would serve this whole thing based on what it currently is. But we'd like to see more looping and connectivity. This is, a far extreme part of our system already. So we want to make sure we have enough pressure so we can meet all those demands.
So what would have to be done in order to meet additional demand?
For instance, they could provide an additional connection point to our system down near South Eagle Circle, something along those lines, or maybe more than one, depending on where those locations are available. But I don't see there's right-of-way or easements available to bring those water lines in at this point. They're kind of landlocked in terms of easements.
Yeah, we looked at that, and I appreciate you bringing that up because we did look at that earlier on too, because there was some obviously concern. There were a couple of things that have happened during this process. This whole site plan and this concept that we've come up with was done in conjunction with the master HOA. There's a couple of, like you said, I think there's 7 sub HOAs here, and then 1 master HOA, and we did work with them. Manny was on board with that. He's president, well, at the time he was, of the master HOA. But there were there's some areas down by the school where we had originally had another connection point physically with a road that was discussed, because obviously there's a lot of traffic already at the school, or at least pre-March. So they were concerned about that being an area. So we cut that access point off, but that is actually right of way touching this boundary of the golf course. That's at the South Eagle Circle. We have a second connection point where the clubhouse is today, further east than that. And that's on an existing road that we would have access to, Daneswood, which also has connection point on South Eagle. And then we have a third one where Fairway Oaks Drive would come in, existing, and it is on right at Eagle Circle. That point there is also a point of connection for us to be able to bring water service into this thing. So we have 3 actual points we could bring water service into the development.
Great, we can talk about it during your design submission.
Right, just want to make you aware of that.
Yep, thank you.
All right, Mr. Evans, do you have any questions on any other comments?
I don't think so. I think that covered everything we wanted to discuss. It was main issues were obviously the open space and how we deal with those. So I appreciate your information on that, and we'll come back in with a revised plan. And then the only other issue that's outstanding, we want to talk to the bill about would be the traffic study. But thank you for your time.
Rebecca, I'd also like to just mention that, as far as we get into the 100-year compensating storage, there is the significant areas there that are shown in the 100-year flood. So I think it would be a good idea to at least define the areas on your master plan where that compensation is going to come from. So we can see how that relates to, what open space you're providing and, whether you've got amenities in that area or not. And it just to show that we have an area to actually accommodate that compensating storage.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably important to show on the master development plan. I think as many of these issues that can be worked out at the rezoning stage, probably the better. So I think, between the, probably conceptually need to figure out the utility issue, the traffic issue, and then also the, the compensating storage for the floodplain.
We do have some exhibits that we've already come up with relative to that bill. So that's, I'll certainly want to provide those in conjunction with our proposed development plan so we understand how we're dealing with that. But we have looked at that.
Okay, yeah, if you can provide those too, so that'd be good.
Okay, does anyone have anything else? Any other Seminole County staff need to address any of the comments in the comment document?
No, we went over all of mine. So.
All right, with that, I guess we can end this DRC meeting. And Mary, if you want to pause the recording.